Mute myself. Folks, welcome back to the Crossing Swords podcast presented by Batavia Downs Gaming and Hotel. We are a few hours away from the Sabres puck drop in Vancouver for a 10 o'clock game, which is a little late, but we are here with myself, Gatesy, and the one, the only Mike_Bundt. Bunty, how are you doing on this beautiful Thursday and a beautiful Sabres game day?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for this show. There's going to be a lot to talk about today. Originally, I thought we were going to be talking about the Sabres road trip and what was going on there. And now it looks like we have a lot more to potentially discuss tonight. So should be a fun episode and can't wait to get right into it.
Yeah, and if you see by the title, we're tracking losses, and really we're tracking in the past 24 hours the private jet of Terry Pegula, because it is moving back and forth to Columbus. And right now, the conversation on Sabres Twitter and the Sabres world is Kevyn Adams on the way out and is Jarmo Kekalainen on the way in? Bunty, I know you've been looking at this a little bit. You're seeing what's going on. Do you think the end is near for the Kevyn Adams tenure in Buffalo? And is Jarmo the guy taking over?
It definitely appears that Kevyn Adams is on his way out, and probably the most predictable thing of all time. Now, how Kevyn Adams even lasted this long was something, but when the Sabres hired Jarmo Kekalainen, I think the thought was, well, he's going to be the general manager eventually of this team, and if they get off to a slow start, could be sooner rather than later, and it's just gotten to a boiling point. It was already a tough start to the season with injuries and guys missing time and not having the proper depth that you thought you had built up throughout the organization. I don't think you and I thought they had enough depth.
No.
It was better than years past in Buffalo, but not enough in the year where you're trying to go for the playoffs. And we said, if Josh Norris gets hurt, what are you going to do? And then you get Benson down, Zucker down, and it just adds up. And I think the real point of when it got bad was the whole Eastern Conference is doing horrible. And you should technically be right in the thick of things. And yet you're still at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And on top of that, it appears that some of the top players on your team that you've invested a lot in are just coasting. And I know that Thompson and Tuck have nice point totals. I know that Dahlin has nice point totals for a defenseman. Their plus minuses are horrendous. When you have Dahlin as a minus 12 and Thompson and guys like that around a minus 11 or 12, like, what is going on here? Like, these are supposed to be the leaders, the veterans, and they're playing worse at times than some of the young players from the American Hockey League. And it's gotten to the point where I don't know how you can deny it. Even if you're Terry Pegula and you love Kevyn Adams, it's what are you supposed to do? And Adams has had more than enough chances, and it's time for a change. And we know that plus minus doesn't matter, Creek. We can talk about Corsi and other stuff, but it does matter to a certain degree because it determines how many goals are scored on the ice when you're on the ice. That does make a difference.
It might two of those guys, like the Sabres have given up a lot of empty net goals, so it's not as bad as 12, but it's still not a good statistic for the Sabres top guys at all.
Yeah, I hate when people say it doesn't matter. It does matter, but there are other advanced stats that go deeper into it. Like if you're on a team where everybody is a +5 and you're a -8, well, then you're probably not playing that well on the ice compared to some of your teammates. But yes, there's different circumstances and different things that go into account and other metrics that are more valuable. But I think it's interesting the timing of all of this. Yeah. And we'll discuss that in a moment because it really feels like this could be the last few games of the Kevyn Adams era.
Yeah, it really does feel like it. And it's feel like it's coming very quickly. I think the big thing behind that, Bunty, is, how this road trip's gone. And like you said earlier, just how poorly things have been for the Sabres. We talked in the offseason how the Kevyn Adams 8-leg parlay needed a hit for this team to get to the next level. And right now, that's not happening at all. You look at the guys that they've been missing throughout the season due to injuries, illnesses, personal reasons. And that's not an excuse because we can look at the Kevyn Adams tenure in the Sabres and we can find really good moves he's made as a general manager. Bring in Ryan McLeod for Matt Savoy. We look at bringing Josh Stone, a couple other moves here and there. But the big issue for him has always been being able to pull the trigger at the right time, being able to do the right moves outside of making trades he kind of has to make for the organization. And when you have such a big offseason ahead with the extension of Alex Tuch, with a bunch of other guys need to be extended, whether that be Josh Stone, Michael Kesselring, they got Peyton Krebs type of guy, it feels like the Sabres are in a situation where they need to make a move now if they don't envision Adams being the forever GM of this team, because this is a huge offseason for the Sabres. They're seeing how the roster is right now, how they're performing, and they need to be able to trust a guy to get this team out of a 14, soon to be 15-year playoff drought, Bunty.
100%. And that's why I think the timing has to happen now, because you got to make a decision in the next 2 months about the future direction of your team. And it's not just about what you do with Alex Tuch. It's about convincing Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson why they should buy in and want to stay part of this. And I'm not saying that you get rid of them even if they don't want to be part of it, but it feels like a foregone conclusion that Tuch is probably going to be on his way out now. You had a chance during the summer to maybe extend him. You didn't. The market is thinned out. He's going to be one of the top free agents available. And if your only way of re-signing him is 8 years, $12 million per, good luck with that. That's one of those insane contracts where what's his incentive to even give a crap once he gets that contract? You give him all the money, and if things stink, you might have a little bit more of some of this recklessness and coasting and turnovers. But this is the thing. Jarmo Kekalainen has experience. So you already have an internal person who's good enough to be the general manager of your team, who has a track record of previous success. Not the highest track record, but Columbus is a tough spot too, and he did have success there. But you almost need to formulate a plan for how are we going to go about these next 2 months if we indeed decide to move on from Alex Tuch. We have to scout other teams. Who are the guys we would be interested in bringing back? Are we trying to get an NHL player back for Alex Tuch? Are we trying to get high-level draft picks? Do we think we can get a prospect that's of decent value? This isn't Jack Eichel that we're talking about, but Alex Tuch is an above-average, I would say tier 2 NHL player. Not a star, but a guy that had 36 goals twice in the last 3 years, 22 goals the other season. So you're talking about a guy that's averaging 30-plus goals a year over the last 3+ seasons.
Can kill penalties and power play time as well. He can play both sides of the puck.
Both sides. And I think that's a very impactful type player on a contending team, and a guy that you'd probably joke about winning the cup wherever he goes. And the thing is, can you really let Kevyn Adams make that decision for you? Can you let a lame duck general manager that is not going to be part of your future decide that? You can't. You can't let Kevyn Adams make that decision. So that's one reason you get rid of it now. And then number 2 reason, maybe you have a chance to spark this team with a move.
Yeah.
Maybe you show them we aren't giving up on this roster. We do think that you guys have some talent. And maybe that's the message this team needs to see in order to realize, okay, this isn't the status quo. We maybe can turn around, because the way the Eastern Conference is right now, you fire Adams and then you win 3 in a row, 4 in a row, you could be right back in it. And so there's a lot of factors in play here. And
true, John.
You also look at the comments that Lindy Ruff said the other day. I think it's very telling. It's clear that Lindy's he's a guy that likes to say what's on his mind, but it feels like he's been a little bottled up during his second tenure in Buffalo, where he's kind of going along with things. He's accepting the assistant coaches that are given to him, didn't get his own staff. But then recently he talks about not really thinking that Ostlund needed to go down. What's that questioning? That's questioning your general manager right there, and the things that are in place. And what could be what led to that? I think it could have been Lindy feeling like maybe this power structure is about to change. And maybe I have more of a voice now, and we can do things my way for a little bit. And that's not to say Kevyn Adams hasn't made good moves. I mean, Josh Doan has been a good move. There's been some other guys that have been very valuable for the Sabres. But if this is a change, I think it's a much needed one. And the question also too would be, if Jarmo does become the interim GM, do they eventually bring in someone else to be a team president? Do they make other moves down the line? I know there's been the Shanahan rumors that maybe that'd be something the Sabres would want to explore. Maybe Shanahan would be interested in the Sabres. It's one of those things where Adams was Terry Pegula's Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott type move. Let's get people that we can be patient, build things in what we perceive the right way, and see where it goes. And it's backfired. And it's been almost 6 years, and it's time for change.
Yeah, 100%. And, reading the comments here, like Steve's saying, it feels like Lindy's the only guy that can talk to Pegula and, get rid of Adams. And that's kind of what we felt all offseason, is like Lindy's kind of pulling the strings as well for this team in some capacity. But you hear what he said in the Austin presser getting sent down, and you have to question, like, how much pull did Ruff have in this roster construction and how this team is? Because you look at the Sabres getting rid of J.J. Peterka, and that feels like a Lindy Ruff move where, he's not playing both sides of the puck. They want guys in who can. They bring in a Josh Doan, who seems like such, a Lindy Ruff guy. And, John, your 15 to 20 goal prediction for the season, that's very low right now. He's already at 10 on the season and such a big asset for this team. But the issue now is, like we talked about, just getting over that hump. We can see, good moves here and there. And I would hope over 6 years we can see good moves made from a general manager. But they're getting to that next level to break a drought like this, to get a team to compete for more than half a season and not go through long stretches. They need some change there. Obviously, we're all looking for a president of hockey ops in some capacity, whether that be Lindy Ruff in, a year or two. Who knows what's going to happen? But it feels like you could rarely get this in a fandom or anywhere, that all Sabres fans are basically on board with Jarmo being, the GM, taking over the reins right now. Creek, thanks for the repost on the stream. And, for everyone at home, please comment your thoughts on the Sabres right now and what you want the Sabres to do at the general manager position, because it feels like with each passing hour that it feels more and more likely that we might see Jarmo taking the reins here.
100%. And it would be interesting what Sabres fans feel about Jarmo Kekalainen taking over. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of positivity to him getting the senior advisor.
That was a good feeling.
And I believe it was more so the feeling that we got a competent person inside this organization, and it was long overdue. Now, there will be some fans that'll point to Jarmo's track record in Columbus and say, well, he didn't really win many playoff series. He didn't really take them far, and he was there for an extended period of time. And that's all fair. He didn't really have that super high level of success.
Saying the P word.
Columbus is a very difficult place to win as well. Not much hockey tradition, a fan base that is still kind of weak by NHL standards. Yes, they have fans. Yes, they care, but
they have a cannon as well.
An argument they care just as much about their MLS team as they do their NHL team.
Awesome
in Columbus, and you're always playing second fiddle to the Ohio State Buckeyes down there. It's a different situation. I agree, John, but I also lived in that part of Ohio for 5 years, so I'm very familiar with the Blue Jackets, and my time coincided when Jarmo was down in Columbus. Hockey is definitely more of a passion in Buffalo than it is Columbus. It's a second fiddle sport in Ohio. There's people that like it. There's people that follow it. They get fans at their games, but there's not the pressure to win that there is in Buffalo. And it's a different, like, he has time, because I don't know if people in Columbus would be, oh, we got to fire this guy. He's horrible. He sucks. And also, he had a lot of success right away there. And he had some really high-level seasons in the regular season. And that was a franchise that had no history before him. So he was kind of like the first general manager that really brought them any sustained success and attention. And I think he was liked by it. And he was bold, and he made big moves. He obviously brought in Johnny Gaudreau, which was a shock out of nowhere. And he's not afraid of being aggressive. That's been the Sabres' biggest kryptonite in recent years. They're afraid of taking big swings at things, and they're always making excuses for why they can't do something. Yes. Oh, the palm trees. Nobody wants to play here. The taxes. It's cold. Small market. I get it. It's hard to attract players to come to Buffalo. So, know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to make some irresponsible decisions. If I was taught one time, if everybody is doing something one way, how are you going to step out by trying to do the same things as everybody else when you have less resources than everybody else? So everybody's doing something one way, and you're trying to do the same thing, but you have a less desirable city, a colder climate, you have higher taxes, you have an unsuccessful franchise, you have a horrible reputation. So why are you trying to do the same things that Florida would do? They don't need to sell their market like you do because they have the nice weather. You're not Toronto to where people want to go home and play for their team. So how do you get people to play in Buffalo? You're going to have to take aggressive risks. You're going to have to overpay somebody quite a bit. And maybe people will laugh at you. But maybe that's the player that gets you the respect or that little bit of growth to then you're starting to win more. And you are a little bit more competitive. And people want to do it the right way. Like when you say you can only win by drafting and development, that's basically saying you have no other avenues to success. And if the only way you're going to win through drafting and development, well, then you better have a better scouting department. But the Sabres cut from their scouting department in the past, so you're contradicting each other. Like the only way to win is a way that you haven't invested in. So that's why I think Kevyn Adams needs to leave, because it's clear he doesn't have an innovative vision to take this team where it needs to be. So if you're going to strike out, you're better striking out with a Jarmo Kekalainen or a Tim Murray, who instead of making excuses for everything, they're going to go out swinging. And I think that's what the Sabres need to do if they're going to get back on track. And I think that's what Tage Thompson and Rasmus Dahlin are desperately asking for right now. They're like, we don't have we can't carry this team. Like Tage Thompson is a fine goal scorer. Yep. But he is not an all-around hockey player. And that's the issue with a lot of these Sabres players. They have little things they're good at, but they don't have enough complete guys. Yes. So go after and try to make some big moves. And let's be real. Has Kevyn Adams gone after one legitimate goalie during his entire time as the general manager of the Sabres?
We got a signing of Colton Ellis off the waiver wire.
I'll say this. I understand that goalie is not a popular analytic position. We're like average goaltender, and we say it all the time. There's not much difference from the average goalie if you're goalie number 10 to goalie number 20. But we keep getting goalie number 50 to goalie number 60. Our starting goalies are like worse than half the backups in the league. And our backups are just as bad. So maybe they should have invested a goalie once in 5 years. That's not above the age of 35.
Yeah, you would think, and the big moves too would do such a wonder for the locker room of, getting some investment in the team. And one thing I think really plagued the Adams tenure at GM and is you look early on, and one of his early moves and his biggest move was signing Taylor Hall in free agency, and for it to work as poorly as it did, I think had some sort of effect on the rest of his tenure at GM. From after that point, we didn't see a massive swing that didn't have to happen. We all know the Eichel saga and different moves here and there, moving Peterka. But in terms of signing a guy, in terms of making that big move, we never really saw that. And I wonder if that had to play a fact in that creek. But yeah, we'll keep three goalies. We'll have 3 threes instead of 1-1. That seems to be working well so far. But we'll talk Jarmo, Kevyn Adams. Carson will be joining us in just a little bit. Let's move through the show just a little bit. Bunty, the Sabres are about to be on game 5 of a 6-game road trip where they are 1-3. We knew they were bad on the road. It's been 253 days now since their last regulation road win. I believe they're 3-9-2 on the season away from the KeyBank Center. I know this isn't what you want and envision, but is this what you kind of feared would happen on this road trip for the Sabres, where the wheels kind of fall off a bit? And I am still baffled they had 2 points last game.
Yeah, this was my biggest fear, and it's sad that it's playing out this way because before the road trip, they were actually playing some decent hockey,
Yeah.
and it looked like they were going in the right direction. And then they immediately hit the road and they forget how to play hockey again. It's honestly, I don't want to say astonishing because now it's almost gotten predictable.
Yep.
Sabres have made me create new phrases on a yearly basis. Consistently inconsistent,
Yep.
which it's like I love that phrase because people are like the Sabres are so inconsistent. I'm like, well, they're consistently inconsistent. Which
It's impressive, honestly.
like in a way, it's like they are consistent.
Mm-hmm.
They just 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 losses. Like, and then the moment you think they're done, they defeat a team like the Minnesota Wild, who are on a 7-game winning streak, and just defeated the Colorado Avalanche. And then you get 2 in a row, and you go on the road against Philadelphia, and you just get annihilated in the score. And I think that's another thing that's kind of frustrating me right now. Is that a lot of these games are games like the Sabres are out shooting opponents, they're getting chances, and they're still losing by like 3 goals.
Yep.
And we got to have a talk. Like the goaltending is awful. Like, and I know we just said it a little bit, but like in the past, I think it was fair to say the goaltending was awful because the players in front of the team, in front of them, were awful. And I don't know if I feel as confident about that anymore. Now I know we had a disagreement the other night about UPL, and honestly, I didn't even watch that game, so I can't speak on the goals that UPL allowed that night. But the expected saves of the expected saves above like expected, all that stuff. The Sabres goalies are failing in those metrics, which means that if you had an average goalie, you do much better based on those stats. So that tells me that it is goaltending that's letting down the team quite a bit. And I feel like a few years ago when you'd watch the Sabres struggle to hold on to leads and other things, they would be allowing odd man rushes. They would be allowing breakaways. You'd be up 2 goals, and then next thing you know, you'd see like 4 2-man rushes, like 2-on-1s in 5 minutes. You'd be like, oh my God, like they have no idea what they're doing. It really hasn't been as much of that to my eyes this season. Sometimes it's just a weak goal that they allow. Other times it's someone not taking care of their man in front of the net. And the frustrating part is they got guys that are experienced now. And it's not these minor leaguers on defense. You got Dahlin, you got Byram, Power, like Timmins. Like these aren't kids. Samuelson, like so I'm starting to like wear thin on the excuses. And I do believe, I hate saying this word with professional hockey because I do think professionals do try, but I do believe there's major effort concerns on this squad. And I'm not saying that they come out in the game and they're not trying.
Yeah.
But when things go wrong, they just they let 2 things happen. Like they'll let a one bad goal turn into a 3-goal deficit.
Yeah.
And then they'll dominate the next 20 minutes. And yeah, maybe that's other teams starting to coast a little bit themselves when they get a lead. But I really feel like there is an effort problem in this team. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it is a lack of talent. I don't know if it is a lack of belief in the coaching staff, if it is a lack in belief in the front office, ownership. But you watch a team like the Boston Bruins that people said were going to tank this year. And every time you watch them, they're battling. Like, and they've gotten off to a decent start to their season, even if it doesn't sustain and if they miss the playoffs. But, like, they battle.
Yes.
I don't know. And I know people will question the Sabres talent. I think it's fair to question, like, they're not upper echelon talent, but they got too many guys to be in the cellar. They got guys that are known commodities in the NHL. They should not be where they currently are.
And that's for me why I hate using the broad term culture, because that could be a lot of things, but it really does hit like the nail on the head. And, dumb penalty, Steve, 100%. And that kind of goes into my biggest thing is it feels like it's just a lack of just mental preparedness and engagement in what they're doing. You see a lot of really dumb mistakes, which you'd expect in like early in a season, new players in, new coach, like that's going to happen in your first, 10 or so games, 10, 15 games. But to have that through 30 games, that we're still, having really dumb mistakes, not taking guys in front of the net. And the thing for me is just getting outworked consistently in front of their own net. If you look at like the shot chart from the Flames game, every single chance the Flames had, the picture of was insane. It was just all on top of the Sabres net, just a million red dots, literally nowhere else in the Sabres zone that was a good scoring chance, but strictly in front. And that's the part that's most disparaging is you want to see the Sabres take on the identity of an underdog, of a team that's trying to break a 14-year playoff drought. And obviously we know it's not the players' fault that it's 14 years, but they have to know what it means to the city, what it means to fans, and to just get outworked, night in, night out in areas that they should feel a lot of pride. You look at, previous Sabres teams.
That's the thing. I don't think they have the pride.
That's what scares me. That's what really scares me.
That's where I think this conversation needs to start going is why is this team not embarrassed by what they're putting out there on the ice? And the only thing I can really get to right now is that it's a cycle. And we talked about this pre-show in which you have all these young kids that come up and they show flashes and they look hungry and they're playing hard and they look good. And you're like, why do these young kids that are 22, 23 always look better than half of our players that are veterans? Because they're playing for their NHL careers. They're trying to earn that promotion and become NHL regulars. Yep. And they make mistakes, but they want to prove to everyone they have what it takes.
Yes.
And what happens, in my opinion, is they stay with the team for 2, 3, 4 years, and the losing just sucks the joy out of them. They see veterans that don't want anything to do with this organization, that want out. They realize they have a front office that is not putting forth their best effort to winning games and turning things around. They see an owner that's not spending to the cap, that's content with the product on the ice. And then they see veterans that simply went after coasting for a period of time or requesting a trade, get traded to great organizations where they win cups and get contract extensions. Yeah. And you also, when you're going to the league, you hear other players talk and other players are trashing the organization. There's people in the media mocking the fans. There's people talking about how Buffalo is a desolate Siberia to play. And it's just an overall depression that surrounds this hockey team. And and that's what I mean by culture. And how did the Bills get out of that? They eventually hit on a star quarterback who had a little bit of charisma and dog in him. And they were able to start winning. And then that convinced other people, hey, let's come be a part of this. The difference being the Sabres aren't going after their guy to be the dog. And we always get mad. Like, why was Tage Thompson not part of Team USA? Well, he should have been. But I think some of that is they look at him as he puts up goals in Buffalo. What else does he do? Like, does he do the little things
100%
that get the Sabres over the top?
And speaking of the Olympics too, Bunty, it drives me crazy when I hear people talk about how the Olympics should be a big thing to motivate guys on this team and how it is. Like, people talk about the team. The fact that like the Olympics would have any sort of will to make guys play better on the Sabres is like, I hope it's not even remotely true where, yes, the Olympics is cool and everything, but these guys, I feel like the want and will to actually succeed in the NHL and have this team succeed isn't there at all, because you see these mistakes, you see this all happen. And John, real quick, I saw your comment. Why do we hear a lot of smoke lately around Kevyn Adams? Where is that coming from? Bunty, do you want to take the lead on that one?
Yeah, so there is a lot of smoke around Kevyn Adams. It's coming from multiple different people within the Buffalo media right now. Nothing has been actually reported that he is on his way out, But the long and short of it is that Jeremy White earlier this morning tweeted Sabres with 2 eyeball emojis and a clock emoji from Stranger Things, basically alluding to the clock is ticking. And you can guess what that's referring to. And then Chad DiDomenicis basically said, I haven't heard anything concrete. Obviously, there's rumors. Maybe he would move to a different spot. The same old stuff we've been hearing for the last 8-9 months. And Jeremy basically wrote back, I'm paraphrasing. I forget the exact words, but you might want to do a little bit of digging. Mm-hmm. And after an hour, Chad basically then says, never mind, and then says, I think it is probable that something could be happening in the near future. He said, nothing I can say substantially. I can't report this. I don't know it to be a fact, but there's a lot of smoke. And then the reason you got to give Jeremy White a lot of credit with this stuff is he's not someone that just puts stuff out there for clickbait. Yes, when he's on the show, he does a lot of stuff that'll get callers and listeners, and he can be a little bit engagement farming when he does radio show, as are 90% of radio people. But Jeremy White is very intelligent. He knows what he's talking about. And
Tim Graham,
I remember he has that super secret Sabres source that is always seemingly right. And then the next level that adds on top of this is that Tim Graham on his Tim Graham and Friends podcast with Jonah Bronstein said that he had talked to he'd been reached out by some of his sources. Obviously, Tim Graham very tight with Buffalo sports with the Bills and the Sabres, and they said there's a lot of smoke that Adams will likely be will be on the move in the very near future. So when Tim Graham speaks, you got to listen. And the fact that Jeremy White also said it, it strikes me as decision has already been made. They are just waiting to announce it and go forward with it. I don't think that you would see Tim Graham putting that out there if he didn't feel pretty confident.
Yeah.
Same with Jeremy White. And I think this road trip was the final straw, because you go into it, 500 in the points, and you get blown out by the Flyers. Then you get you lose to a Winnipeg team that you just handled earlier in the week. And then you play a Flames team, one of the worst teams in the NHL, and you get swept by them. And let's be real, I don't even think the Edmonton game was a good thing for Adams either, because your team goes up 3-0 and they're 20 minutes away from a victory, and they still nearly blow the game. So yes, they get 2 points, but I think that was another sign of, even when things are going good for us, we don't even know how to put a full 60 minutes together. And tonight you have Vancouver, and Vancouver obviously is one of the worst teams in that NHL too. If you lose against Vancouver, like that's clear as day. Like, you lost to Vancouver and Calgary on the same road trip. See you later. If you Vancouver or you beat Seattle, that's not enough to change the picture for me. And now Zucker is going to be out week to week. Norris tweaked something. I don't know if he's playing tonight or if he's out yet, but it's okay. We've given it a chance to see if it's going to come together. It's not coming together. Time to fire up this team. And I think that's what the Sabres thought process is.
Definitely. And like looking at what Steve said with Kuntar, he signed, was it yesterday? And speaking of Kuntar too, I played with his brother at Chatham. And, when I was at Chatham, it was a newer program and it was really bad to start. And I remember our head coach specifically telling young guys, be friends with the older guys, but, don't get into their routines. Because you look at guys that have been around for a while at a program that's not succeeding. A lot of times it's, your older guys, your vets who, phenomenal guys, great guys. But to win games and to get to the next level, you have to be dialed in on everything, be an absolute, maniac in a lot of aspects of your life. And we didn't have that for a while. Now that's the culture now. After building that for a couple of years, they're ranked for the first time in program history. You look at the Sabres, and for me, that's what scares me the most. But you look at someone like Jason Zucker and what he brings to the Sabres, even on the ice. He's a power play guy, net front, finds ways to score goals. And now you see he didn't play last game. Josh Dunn takes over a spot, a guy that does little things right, plays the game the right way, and he's being rewarded for it. He had 2 power play goals, very similar to the way we see Jason Zucker score, not in between the legs, scoring like that, but being net front, being hard to play against, playing the right way. And that's something that can give me a little hope. I saw a comment from John earlier about, Doan is captain material. I think that's something that would be awesome. You look at the Sabres captains too, since really the drought or in recent history. You have Eichel, you have Okposo, you have Dahlin now. It's, most of the time your top players that are getting this. And I'm always a big believer that, your top players should be your biggest, workhorse on the ice. And yeah, so we'll see what the Sabres do there. I think that culture is a big part. And Bunty, we know we talked about the Edmonton game. That third period, they gave up a goal 10 seconds into McDavid. They gave up a goal 2 minutes in, so now it's 3-2, 2 minutes in. They find a way to survive basically that whole third period until 1 second to go, until it goes to overtime. And then somehow, they dug deep. They found a way to win in overtime. Is what we saw from the Sabres being able to, score early. Alex Line comes in relief for, Colton Ellis, who had to leave with a concussion spotter. And yeah, Steve, Benson, Doan, Zucker, they play the right way. And that's what scares me is I don't want these guys to lose that aspect of their game the longer they're around. So we'll see what progresses there. And I think that's why we need change. But you look at that Edmonton game, Bunty, is this, a flash in the pan of, we always see the Sabres have good moments and this is that? Or, are we going to get delusional and think this could be some sort of turning point for them where, they found a way to survive. They messed up, but they didn't crumble and fall apart.
So I hate being this guy, but I just have no belief in this team until they show me they can turn around. And I don't like that mindset because just because you're a bad team doesn't mean that you can't do things the right way at times. 100%. And when you get into this, you need to prove it to me mentality. That means I'm not making opinions based on the moves and what I'm seeing with my eyes. I'm just making my opinions based on previously being hurt by this squad and just assuming the worst. It's the same thing like when you're a great team like the Patriots dynasty or the Chiefs, how they get applauded for every move, even though a lot of times they make moves that don't make sense or are poor. Like Xavier Worthy, they get Xavier Worthy in Kansas City. It's supposed to be the great receiver move, and people talked it up about, oh, this is why the Bills not get Worthy. They got Coleman. Coleman stinks. Well, then you look at Xavier Worthy, and he's just as bad as Keon Coleman. He stinks. But it took 2 years to acknowledge that because for a year and a half, people were praising how good of a pick it was. And I hate being this way with the Sabres because I do like their additions Josh Doan. I liked when they brought in Zucker, McLeod, and they've had decent additions, but it's gotten to the point where the culture, I think, just tears this team apart. And I don't know, man. It's hard to have any optimism when every time you get a 2-game winning streak, you respond by losing to some random no-name team. And like even crazier, like how many times have the Sabres played a team at home on the second end of a back-to-back like Calgary and St. Louis?
Yep.
2 bottom feeders in the West and lose. But then when the role is reversed and they lose to Calgary, they then play the Edmonton Oilers the next night and they win and they jump ahead 3-0. And I would love to say that it's just like a coincidence, but I don't think it is a coincidence that the Sabres respond to 2-game losing streaks or 3-game losing streaks and then put together complete performances against good teams. I think part of it is some of the good teams play down to the Sabres. I think it's part of it is the Sabres, it takes them losing 2 or 3 games for them to even give a shit. It's a give a shit meter. And I don't think the Sabres do well on the give a shit meter most of the time. And like I said, I don't like getting to that point because I don't want to question the effort level of professional players. But I feel like we've heard it enough after games that we almost had to start questioning it. And it was really noticeable the other night when Jason Zucker was talking because he was saying basically nobody's getting in front of the net. Nobody's forechecking. Nobody's doing the little things that you need to do that aren't easy, that require some effort. And you know what? Zucker was the perfect guy to say that. Yes. And I know his plus minus stinks this year. But Zucker is one of the guys that does the little things. He is one of the guys that battles. And he has played on great teams and very good teams. And he knows what it's like to play on the line at times with Sidney Crosby and other guys. And I think that should be embarrassing for the rest of the team, that you got to the point where a guy that has bought into your organization, yeah, he probably got more money, and that probably led him signing in Buffalo, extending. But
he's earned it, though.
He's in the later years of his NHL career, and he's choosing to play it in Buffalo. And he probably likes the money, but he also saw the ability to succeed and still have some value to his game. And it probably has to be pretty disappointing to him to see the lack of shit given by some of his teammates. And you got Tage during the game talking about bad bounces, or we outplay teams when we lose. And then after the game, like, you think, like, okay, maybe in the moment he's talking about a bad bounce, like he's just trying to, like, keep things going. Don't worry about it, move past it, like, let's keep battling. And then after the game, he says the same thing. You're an assistant captain. You're one of the elite goal scorers in the league, and that's the way you're talking. Own up to it. You were one of the ones that called for accountability on this team, and you're not being accountable to yourself. Like, that's the shit that really is bothering me. And I said this to AJ on the phone recently. When the Sabres got rid of Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart, a really funny thing happened. They didn't get dramatically worse. No. And you know why I think that was telling? It's telling that the culture was already dead, and that even with two guys of their caliber, it didn't make a difference. And within 2 years, they were already much better than they ever were during any season they had Eichel and Reinhart. But with Eichel and Reinhart, they maxed at low 80s one year. Most of the time, they were in the 70s. And suddenly, 2 years later, with a bunch of kids and inexperience, they get to 91 points. Well, I think we might be getting, unfortunately, to that same point where we, not saying Eichel, not saying Thompson and Tuck and Dahlin are Eichel and Reinhart, but where we're getting these guys that have the talent, but they're not, and maybe they're not as public with their discontent and their frustrations, but they're not doing the things on the ice that they need to be doing. There's a reason why the Boston Bruins, with no talent, are winning games. And for the same reason, that's why the Sabres are losing games. If the Sabres just work their ass off on a nightly basis, they should be no worse than a few games over 500. They're not doing it. And honestly, I understand the frustrations with management. I understand the frustrations with ownership. But at some point in time, where is the pride in this group to where you, like, and I understand a lot of these players, they don't love this fan base because they feel like we have a toxic fan base that is always against them and critical of them. But you're playing for a city that is just desperate, relevant, and just to make the playoffs. And they just don't seem to care. And it's sad. It's really sad because they need to get out of this cycle somehow. And I don't know how you get out of this cycle without making some drastic changes. And I always thought that Thompson and Tuck were going to be part of the solution. And now I don't know if I believe that anymore. And the only way I think you salvage Thompson is if you bring in somebody else to take over the top role on this team as a forward and have Thompson be, it's almost like let Thompson be your Pat Kane to Jonathan Toews. Like, you're the skill guy. You're going to score a lot of goals. Fans are going to love you. But you're not the face of our forwards. Jonathan Toews is our guy. You're Danny Briere versus Chris Drury. You're like every organization has they need that other guy to take that next step. And it doesn't even need to be a more talented player. It needs to be a guy that has the right mix of high-end ability, of a voice in the locker room, and the ability to have a two-way game. And Tuck is a great player, but Tuck isn't at that. He ascended in Buffalo. They need somebody that has done it before here. And it can't be a Zucker who is later stages of his career. It can't be a Josh Norris who has been good, but for another crappy franchise who's always hurt. It needs to be a 6-7 year NHL vet who's put up 70 points, 65 points, who's respected, who has a voice in the league. And that's how they're going to change it. And unfortunately for the Sabres, those are guys everybody in the NHL
wants. Everyone wants that.
You're going to have to overpay versus the production you get. But at this point, and I don't know how it's ever going to happen with no trade clauses, but you almost need to pull off a miracle like that. And that's what Chris Drury was back in the day. Mm-hmm. And they got to figure it out. And I don't know if they ever will.
Yeah, and that's the scary part is you look at this core, and even throughout the course of the season, they've had bad games or they've stretched some good games together. And every time they have a bad game, it's the same exact talking points in the locker room of, we need to be better. We can't, walk into this game and expect to win. We need to play hard every single night. And then it's the same, repeating issues over and over. And even when you hear Tage say, it feels like they dominated the game, but they still lost. Like, that's true to some extent. If you see they're out shooting teams, they have more offensive zone time. But the time the puck's in their own zone or the times they just shut their brain off for way too long, it happens way too often. They get scored on because of it. Great teams, like, they prioritize their D zone more than their offensive zone. I want nothing more than these Sabres do that, because you look at the Sabres 91-point team. This just feels like a worse version of that, where it feels like they're worse defensively and worse offensively, and they're not getting insane goaltending from UPL. They, in my mind, need to change how they play. I was super excited for Ruff to come back because I thought he could instill that joy for, the D zone, for the little things. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. So yeah, John, I agree. I think Jarmo can be that change there. We talked about the big swings he's made throughout the course of his GM. And the thing that Jarmo that just excites me, I think excited fans when they brought him in, was just that experience he has. It feels like every move the Sabres make, especially in the front office, is like, oh, we're going to have to develop a general manager who was coaching the U12 team the year prior. It's very, I don't know. I would be excited for the idea of a Jarmo.
What's frustrating about that is acknowledging that if you're a USA developmental coach, you have a chance to be the Buffalo Sabres next head coach.
Yes.
Because that's going to be the strategy of how we're building the team.
It's crazy. And even the head coaching too, Bundt, we brought in a soccer coach at one point during this. Like, I'm ready for some stability. And it feels like the Sabres keep trying to reinvent the wheel every single move they make. And it's obviously not working so far. So we'll see what happens there. Bunty, we're over a third of the way through this season. There's a lot that we need from this team. But in terms of certain players, is there someone that's not meeting your expectations or you need more from at this point in the season? Or who's that guy for you that if I gave you a crystal ball and you'd be like, you're back to normal, you're elevated, who are you taking?
Can I name the entire roster?
I mean, I can accept that because
I'll just tell you the guys I need more. I'm pulling up some numbers in front of me so I can have so I don't just say random shit. But based on the eye test, who do I need more out of? I need more out of Tage Thompson. I need a lot more out of Tage Thompson. I don't care that he has 26 points in 30 games and he's on pace for around 40 goals.
We had a good stretch too. We had a 6-game goal streak. Yeah. So outside of that too, it's even worse.
I need Tage to play some damn defense once in a while. I need Tage to give a shit and light a fire into the rest of this team. He is not a kid. He's 28. Yeah. How many prime Tage Thompson 40-goal years do we have left? Maybe 4? We got that. Once you get to 32, 33, 34, you start to slow down a little bit. Tage, if you want to have that career that it matters, scoring 40 goals is not going to do it. Winning hockey games is what will do it. So I need more from him. I can't criticize Alex Tuch too much. He's only one of the few players on the team that's actually not a negative at this point in plus minus.
It blows my mind, but yeah.
I've seen so many sloppy moments from him this season, and it seems at times he's going through the motions. And I know that's like I said, I hate putting accusations like that out there, but that's how I feel. I'll say this. First half of the season, I know we're going to get Carson on here in a second too, so let's just throw Carson on here so he can join the conversation. Then we can kind of go back to the Kevyn Adams stuff. First half of the season, Rasmus Dahlin was horrible too. But understand the circumstances surrounding his fiance. Obviously, a lot of off-ice issues. But let's be real. Jack Quinn is the same player he is now that he was as a rookie. Jack Quinn blows my mind. The lack of development on his end. Bowen Byram was a former top 5 pick. The analytics were bad last year, but he got an extension, and he has been horrible defensively. Zucker is a -10 in 21 games, but at least he has some point production. It's Owen Power. I don't even know what he does in front of the net other than watch tourists knocking rebounds. He's not doing anything in front of the net. Peyton Krebs, I was excited about him as our 4th-line center. I thought that would give him somewhat of an advantage. Peyton Krebs has been horrible the entire season. Connor Timmins has been horrible the entire season. Don't get me started on all 3 goaltenders. Alex Lyon had a nice start to the year, but now he's down to an 899, which I guess by Sabres standards makes him their best goalie since
elite.
Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen, Gatesy. I know we off camera, when we talk, we're normally good, but when we text, we're not. Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen is one of the worst goaltenders I've ever seen in the NHL that gets the amount of time he gets. He is horrendous. My eyes bleed watching Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen play hockey. And the fact, he has an 884 save percentage, Casey.
Yeah, it's not good.
You want to know something? I looked this up. We always say Devin Levi isn't ready to be in the NHL. And we say, well, his save percentage isn't that good when he's in the Sabres. Do you know Devin Levi's save percentage for his career in the NHL is 2 points different than Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen?
It's almost identical.
It's almost identical, except for we say that Devin Levi stinks. Mm-hmm. So if Devin Levi is a 23-year-old who stinks, what are we saying about Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen, who's a 26-year-old?
He's a 26-year-old who stinks.
Who has a 5-year contract. Who needs to be better? Name the entire roster. And then we don't even have Yuri Kulik, because of blood clots. You have no Kesselring because he gets hurt. And Josh Norris, it's a day by day. But I do have a few players I do want to compliment.
Yep.
Josh Stone. I know his plus-minus isn't great, -7. That guy's a dog.
Yes.
Capital DAWG. Matthias Samuelsson. Mm-hmm. He's having a great season. He's proven a lot of people wrong. Zach Benson. He's having a great season. Would be nice if he learned how to score goals, but at least he gets points setting other players up. Outside of those guys,
I think Bryson's been great. Expectations were low, and he's been solid.
Norris somehow is a -6 in 5 games despite having 7 points.
It's impressive.
That is very impressive. It means that you are basically
a power play merchant.
Yes, which is funny because that's all Dylan Cousins is. But I could shit on this entire roster right now, and it also is funny how on at home they're on a 103-point pace, but on the road they're a 40-point pace. But let's get other Carson involved. Yeah. Now I'm a mic between 2 Carsons, and Gatesy, I'll let you start with him, and I'll tell you one thing, Gatesy. Carson was not liking the Kevyn Adams conversation earlier this morning, and he was saying this is a little premature, the
Kevyn Adams truther,
a little bit sensitive. So he's had some time to digest everything, and I think he is also a little bit nervous that St. Bonaventure might lose to Ohio University this weekend. So he is a little on edge. So I can understand why he's a little sensitive, but we'll let him talk a little bit.
Yeah. Initially, I saw the tweet today around 9:30 this morning, and it was regarding something Chad Dinaminis put out. I think he's a guy who has a lot of good sources typically. And I saw, the rumor mill starting. Okay, well, it's not Elliot Friedman. It's not Pierre LeBrun. It's not Kevin Weeks. None of the big, insiders that typically know what they're talking about, posted anything, at least to my knowledge. I checked the Sabre report, Sabre source crossing swords. We didn't have anything, right? So it kind of struck my mind. And then I saw Jeremy White said something. I was like, okay. And I'll openly admit I'm not the biggest WGR listener. Right now I'm at college, so I don't drive, right? I'm on campus, so there's not a ton of reason for me to throw WGR on. And I'm also very busy. So when I heard Jeremy White, I was like, okay, well, what makes that different from anything maybe somebody else says, right? Well, to my knowledge, I guess Jeremy White has a good track record of secret Sabre source, so I was off the mark with that. But what I will say is now that this does appear to be, hey, this could be happening here a little bit more with multiple people kind of saying this, and it's only probably a matter of time till it catches some traction with, the big fish like Friedman or LeBron or any of those guys. It's just, I don't know. But we talked about this a little bit today. I was running a little bit hot about it because I've heard this for the last 2 years, and I'm sick of hearing about, there's smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And Kevyn Adams, if it doesn't get better now, well, maybe the future is short-lived for him. And that just hasn't been the case. It's been all fabricated to this point in time. This one seems a little bit different, though. I will say that. It seems a little bit different.
Have you heard the latest about Tim Graham?
I did hear what I saw that Tim Graham believes that he's going to be out. But I haven't heard exactly what he said. I've spent the last 4 hours.
He basically said there's smoke from his sources that Kevyn Adams could be on his way out very soon.
Okay, so but I do want to discuss something though that we talked about. I think we're on 2 different pages. If this is leaked and it's going to be correct, I think this is extremely unprofessional from the organization. This is the guy who's second in command from Terry Pegula. Unless they had a conversation, which again, the status is they talk daily. I think this is just not a great move as far as the guys who are supposed to be around him and supportive of him in that front office and other people from PR maybe putting this out there. I don't think that's a great thing. I think that's something that you keep in-house, even if when he's coming back, hey, ties are going to be cut. I just don't think that's something. I feel Adams is almost getting stabbed in the back a little bit here, because if other people know that aren't inside the organization before maybe Adams knows he's going to get fired, I don't think that's correct, especially when
maybe Adams does know.
If he knows, he knows. Okay, then this point is completely invalid. But I find it extremely unlikely that he made a road trip on the West Coast to know that he was getting fired. I just don't think that's a likely thing. And I think if he is going to get fired, he doesn't know of it. I think that's a black eye to the people inside of that organization, and kind of, I don't want to say their morals. I don't think that's the right word.
First of all, the Pacific Northwest is a beautiful place and a great place to vacation. So if anything, maybe they told him before the road trip and he just wanted to have one last trip with his guys.
Go to band.
That's the case. I love that. I think that's great.
Why they lost the first 3 games, because they're sad.
Behind the barn.
They're sad that he's going to be gone soon, and this is the last time they get to hang out with him. But on a serious note, Carson, I get it. I respect where you're coming from. It's not great. I'm not going to deny it, but this stuff happens in professional sports.
I agree. Here's the thing, though. I get it with a player aspect, especially if you're one of the guys who are more, I don't want to say insignificant, but let's say you're a bottom 6 guy, right? I do feel that is something that does happen. I still don't agree with it then, but I really don't agree with it when it's somebody at the level and the job level that Kevyn Adams has. But also the time of year, if it was up to me, I think I'd probably wait until after Christmas. I get this guy is filled with a ton of money. He's played in the NHL. He's probably making a good buck. For all we know, he might be making like $50,000 as the Sabres general manager. That's why he stayed this far. But all jokes aside, it's a holiday type of year, and you got to look. I think there's more than just a general manager. Kevyn Adams is a guy who I think deep down is, again, local guy. He's a guy who I think really did put a lot of pressure on himself and thought, hey, I could be the guy. And he really tried to get this thing over the hump. I mean, maybe was he playing with one arm behind his back a little bit sometimes? Yeah. Was he maybe afraid to make a move every now and again? Sure. But again, I think there's more than just maybe a job title here that he's in the NHL. This is somebody who's a father, who's a husband, who's going to be losing his job here.
I respect what you're saying, Carson, but you're putting too much of a personal touch on a person that has failed miserably.
What's a week though, Bundt, from what's going to be the difference if he gets fired Tuesday to the 29th? I don't think there is any. I really don't. To me, that's just something that I would
But
do
you
differently.
just answered your question. What's the difference? There is no difference.
No. The difference, I just explained my difference, is the difference is
what I'm trying to say, though, Carson, is in professional sports, they don't care about your feelings.
But hold on. But here's my counterpoint to that, though. There's a roster freeze in the NHL from, I believe, the 23rd to the 27th. So there is something there where it's
maybe they will wait. Maybe they will wait to the 29th. They haven't fired him yet. We don't know.
The 11th.
I agree. If all indications
the point is, too, though, if you're a dead man walking, sometimes you just want them to cut bait because you're tired of it. You don't want to deal with it. Like, it's over. And it's not just hockey. Like, my job last year told me on December 1st that in 30 days, my job wasn't going to exist anymore. I either had to transfer to something else in my company or I would have to find a new job. And that's just a normal job. And, like, it stinks. And, like, I'm still working there and things are good. But, like, that's just the real world. If the real world ain't going to care about you during Christmas, the professional sports ain't going to care about you on Christmas. And like, I don't mean this to be like kind of like talking down to you, because I mean this like as a friend. The world don't care about your feelings. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can be able to handle everything appropriately. They don't care. Like, I
get that. It's just, I think there's a certain way to do things that are the correct way, and whether or not they do that,
that's not how the world works. Very few people that are high up in businesses or professional sports or corporations, politics, anything, do things the moral or ethical way. That's how most of those people get to where they are, is because they shit the system. They do things corrupt. They do things to get around. Most people at the top have sacrificed a part of them to get to where they are. And I've known a lot of people that have gotten to the top, and I'm not saying they're all bad people. There's some that I like, but they've all done things that they sure as hell shouldn't be proud of what they've done. And this is the fact about Kevyn Adams. At the end of the day, this is his, 6th year as the Sabres general manager. Most general managers would get fired after 4 years of making no playoffs. He's had a team that had 91 points, and since that point, they went to 84, 79, and now they're on pace for even less. He should be grateful that he's even had his job as long as he's had it. And yes, he's a Buffalo guy, and he wants what's best for Buffalo, and that's all great. But you know what? Lindy Ruff is essentially a Buffalo guy too at this point, having played for the team, having coached for the team, living in Clarence, having spent more than half his life in Buffalo. And you know what's going to happen at the end of the season if the Sabres miss the playoffs? They're going to fire him for a second time. And you know what? Fans aren't going to feel bad about it because he's going to have probably deserved it, because he's going to have 2 years with this roster, and he didn't get it better. They got worse. So the thing about Kevyn Adams is this Sabres team has a lot of big decisions to make over the course of the next 2 months. And you can make the argument that, yes, they're not going to be able to make moves around Christmas time, so why can't you wait a week? My counter argument to that is they've already wasted more time than what they should have to begin with. They have Alex Tuck, who is either going to get a massive contract extension by the Sabres or is going to be traded in the next 2 months.
Or
and
walk.
they have to decide what their plan is to handling that. So that means getting scouts to go to all the teams in the NHL to watch guys that they could potentially trade for. That involves scouts looking at prospects in the American Hockey League to see which prospects might stand out to them. That involves looking at scouting just this upcoming draft to see where you need to be at range-wise to add guys on the team. And then also figuring out who are the guys that are part of the problem in our organization. Do we have to move on from those guys? Who are the guys we like? Who are guys that we might want to extend? And then if you have Kekalainen, he's going to have 2 months to basically put his imprint on the Tuck decision. Kekalainen needs every second he needs to figure this out. And yes, you can say, well, he's a senior advisor. He can do that. Not quite. He needs that day-to-day operational leadership. And then here's another huge part about it. What if they believe within the organization that this roster is still good enough to compete in the Eastern Conference. This could be at the time you provide a spark to your team,
what are you still doing here?
and you tell them, we can turn it around. We do believe in you guys. You know what? Yes, you guys haven't gotten it done, but we're gonna make a bold move here. Kevyn Adams didn't give you guys what you need. Jarmo Kekalainen is the third general manager in the history of this franchise with previous GM experience coming to Buffalo. And you want to know something? The last two GMs that have come to Buffalo that had previous experience were Scotty Bowman, who literally was a GM of the expansion St. Louis Blues. And literally, we all know Scotty Bowman more as a head coach than general manager. And then Punch Imlach, who was the first general manager in the history of the team, who was the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, like, this, I hate to say it because, like, it's a sacrifice, but Kevyn Adams is viewed as a joke across the NHL. I think he's a good person. I thought he had a chance to be successful. And I understand, like, you don't want to do things around the holidays because it's a special time of the year. But, Carson, at the end of the day, the holidays don't matter to the future of the Buffalo Sabres.
Right.
No.
So here's my thing.
Not everybody is religious either. And I'm assuming Terry Pegula probably is. But at the end of the day, like, without trying to be a Scrooge, you can't let holidays, you can't let personal feelings dictate how to run your franchise. And we don't even know when it's going to happen, if it does indeed happen.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they have to focus on what will turn this team around, because for 15 years they haven't prioritized that.
Yeah, here's the thing though. I do want to clear this up too. It's a results business. I do get that. The results haven't been there. After that 91-point season, they've fallen off the face of the potential that they had. It was clear, hey, we had a youth movement possibly. The thought was everyone's going to internally get better, and it just didn't quite work out like that. So at the end of the day, yeah, blame does go to Kevyn Adams. Like he was here for what's it going to be, almost 50% of the drought. That's a considerable amount of time. By year 4, you should be able to figure out, and he hasn't figured it out, right? So it's everything about it is kind of disappointing, right? So like whether or not he should be fired, I think is a different conversation. Now, if I was the owner, I probably would have looked into it maybe a year or two ago. But at the same time, to me, it's interesting because it's just tough, like he has tried different ways. The team faces injuries. Maybe things go a little bit different. They're more healthy now. But it's just interesting. Like by year 4, he should have figured it out. It didn't work. They got rid of Granato. Like it's just a personal tendency I have. I talked about it in the group chat today. Like I typically stick with coaches or players longer than I probably maybe should have. What's going on, Slick? But I'm a big believer in that, and I think it's a loyalty thing. But at the end of the day, like I do get what you're saying. It's cutthroat, and the holidays don't matter that much. Like to me, though, like the week doesn't matter. I'd give him past Christmas, and then boom, like you're kind of that's the thing, right? I probably would let him ride out, but it's just the contract extensions not going to happen. It's clear at the bare minimum he's not going to get a contract extension at the end of the year. Lindy's probably going to be gone as well. That's going to be a lot. Those are 2 major holes that you're going to have to replace. And if you can do it right, you never know what can happen. Like the foundation for this team is here, no doubt about it. I think there's a rebuild we've saw from past history. That's not the right way to go about things here, especially in the last decade when it comes to, quote unquote tanking. But the foundation's there. You got Thompson, you have Dahlin, you have Tuck for now, but you still have assets there that you can get out of that. You have Zach Benson, who looks great. The guys who are coming up from Rochester look good right now. There's still question marks though, but it's difficult when you look at the GM and you compare it to coaches. There's one thing that's been constant over, the last 6 years, and it's been, 2 things, I guess. Terry Pegula, the owner, and then, it's Kevyn Adams at GM. So right now, I think, it's my personal side. I've always been kind of a bit of a Kevyn Adams defender to a certain point. There are certain faults that do come onto him, but at the same time, I think there's been times where maybe the luck of the draw hasn't went your way, but after 6 years, we can't just be talking about luck. We eventually have to get the job done, and it's results-driven business. And when you don't get results, changes have to be made. And I think we're kind of to the point now where things might be starting to turn that way.
Do you know
Yeah.
the day Kevyn Adams was fired?
It hasn't happened yet.
Well, it happened actually a long time ago. It just wasn't officially announced. It was the day Jarmo Kekalainen was hired.
That's not. I don't disagree with that. I think the writing was on the wall there.
They put the knife in that day, basically.
Yeah, when you bring in a veteran GM that's been doing it for a decade in a similarly sized hockey market, you're putting the writing on the wall. They knew they were basically saying, Kevyn Adams, you have 1 year, one offseason to turn things around, or else you're done. And they're not going to let Kevyn Adams make the Alex Tuck decision.
Yeah.
That's too big of a decision to let somebody that's a lame duck general manager who's going to be gone at the end of the year to decide. And then you have a really bad – because here's the issue. You don't get rid of Adams now, and you wait another month and a half, and you don't do the proper scouting, the proper stuff that you need to go into that decision. And then you say you're kind of competitive and you're thinking, oh, well, maybe we keep Tuck and we try to compete for playoffs. And then he doesn't re-sign. You lose him for nothing. Yep. If you get in an area where you decide, well, let's give him a contract extension. You give him an 8-year, $12 million a year contract extension. And then you still miss the playoffs by 15 points. And then Tuck, the next 5 years, gets you 45 points a season and he regresses. Then you just had a huge miscalculation on a value of a player. And if you just trade him away and you don't get the proper return, you're going to be screwed in that area too. Like, they can't let him make that decision. And so if they do indeed fire him soon, it's a mercy fire. It's basically, and even with the way the Sabres run, who knows? Maybe they don't even fire him. Maybe they just reassign him to a lower level role in the organization where he can still stay in Buffalo with his family, but they just basically give him a regular salary and he gets to live his life still. Like, at the end of the day, like, he's never going to be a general manager in the NHL ever again. He's probably never going to be an assistant general manager in the NHL ever again. His reputation is horrible around the league. So if the Sabres decide to push him aside, and who knows what happens, but it's one of those things where I think there's no point to stall things anymore. I'm not saying that because Stahl is going to be the next GM, but it seems like Kekalainen is going to be the guy. And if I was the Sabres, I would promote Kekalainen to general manager. I would bring in a guy like Shanahan to be team president, and I'd say, we're going for it. We're trying to win. Shanahan brings in a level of respect. Kekalainen brings in a level of respect. And what my first thing this offseason would be, and I know it's a thinning free agency, so who knows who's really out there. I would make a move that says we're open for business.
Well, it's tough too because Kevyn Adams bought out Jeff Skinner. They're going to be paying him over $6 million next season. But yeah, even if Tuck doesn't want to resign, they have to get something for him. They cannot let Alex Tuck walk for nothing. So I think it's why I have to bring Jarmo in sooner rather than later. I saw comments up here too on when it would be. It's not so much like a coach thing where it's after a really bad game you fire him, because the GM is much more of a longer term thing. So I think it's once the time's right, there's a move there, and they feel comfortable with Jarmo. And they got DeBoer this summer. It'll be interesting to see what the Sabres do. And there's a lot of conversations we can have here. Trade a goalie, waive Krebs. There's a lot of things going wrong right now for the Sabres, and it feels like a big move like that could be something that can shake this team up in some capacity. They play in Vancouver tonight, guys. How much stock are you putting in this game, and do you think there's much to it at all? Like, how much?
Zero stock. Zero. This game means nothing. And if the stuff that we've seen is to be believed and a decision is already made, the last thing you probably want as a Sabres fan is anything that could convince them to change their mind. Yeah, I'm going to assume that they're already locked into whatever decision they're going to make. And one other thing, and we talked about this earlier, Gatesy, but we should bring it up to Carson too. Lindy Ruff basically indirectly called out Kevyn Adams earlier this week.
Yep.
And Lindy has gone along with everything they've done. He's accepted having his assistant coaches be handpicked by Adams and Pegula. He hasn't had his own staff. And for Lindy to basically say that was basically saying, I don't like what we're doing. I'm not having full authority over my team and my roster. And we've had internal discussions about maybe things that have gone on inside the Sabres building. And we didn't know what to make of it. But I think it's clear now there is a power structure shifting taking place. And I'm interested to see how all the things might turn out. Because let's be really, really upfront and honest. If they fire Adams and then this team somehow wins like 6 of 7 games, not saying that's going to happen. It's probably less likely than them just like losing 6 of 7. But if they somehow get hot after firing Adams, it's going to be really revealing that this roster basically thought he was a lame duck GM that didn't have their best interests in play.
Yeah, it's as far as the stock question goes tonight. It's a really weird comparison, but I remember there was a saying in high school that we had for history class. I should say government class. I'd compare the owner, the general manager, and the coach similar to like U.S. Congress. You have the Supreme Court. They're in there for life, right? That's your owner. Your senators are in there for every 6 years, so their decisions aren't as much influenced maybe by their peers. And then you have the House of Representatives, who every 2 years, right, they're up and ready to go, and you know they're making a lot of decisions on when it comes to themselves a little bit to get reelected. I kind of feel like the House of Representatives represents your coach, the senator represents your general manager, owner, obviously Supreme Court. So like it's. As far as stock goes in tonight's game, when it comes to if this is going to save Kevyn Adams' job, if he does get fired, like, and the reports are true, and we're going along with that. No, Kevyn Adams, you know, we're not going to take a 5-game sample or a 1-game sample. We should never be talking about individual games when it comes to whether or not we are going to be letting a GM go if we're, you know, taking the report seriously. If you are talking about that, I think you have serious issues. And I think that kind of maybe right there kind of in a way gives you your answer, right? So, no, tonight does not matter when it comes to stock. With that said, you're damned if I don't want them to win still. Vancouver is one of the worst teams in the league, if not they're the worst team. Demko's coming back for them. Yeah. You know, this is a team you have to beat. If you're going to be serious come March, come April, which they're not out of it by any means yet. They're still in the race. Like everything's tight right now. The Atlantic's not a great division. Like, yeah, teams are good, but nobody's like separating themselves for that third divisional spot. The Red Wings, for Christ's sakes, were first in the Atlantic. They might still be. I checked last night or something like that. So the opportunity's there for them to take. 100% they could still be in this thing. They're still in this thing. And if they can win tonight, you know, that's a big time win against the team you're supposed to beat if you're going to be for real. And then you got Seattle coming up. Like the road trip provided you opportunities to win hockey games, and you come out of it and you got Philadelphia next Thursday as well. So like these are games that they're going to need to have if they're going to take that next step, whether or not Kevyn Adams is even the general manager. I don't think that's factored into the equation. They need games like this, plain and simple.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, this Vancouver game, I want to see them build off of the Edmonton game, show some pride, maybe light a fire under them. Gentlemen, as we start to wind the show down, I want to thank the over 3,100 people that stopped in today. Bunty, I want to hear your final thoughts. I'm going to run off real quick, but I will be back.
Okay, final thoughts. Gatesy walks away. Is basically this road trip was the final nail in the coffin for everything with Kevyn Adams. I know you said some positive things, Carson. I know you don't want to give up complete hope on this team. And I still believe in some of the guys on this roster, but it feels like now it's time to basically to move on. I don't want to give up on the season, but essentially I am focused on what does the future hold. If the only way they will make this season matter is if they somehow get hot at some point and then figure out what the next steps are once Kevyn Adams is gone. And it's sad. We're talking about mid-December and feeling like the season is already out of reach. And I know that's not the case in the standings, but if we're being real, when you get past 30 games, you know what your team is. And the whole conversation going into this month was, can this team show me that when healthy, they are good enough to be in the race and they have the mental toughness to be competitive on a nightly basis. And their road splits they just prove that this team doesn't have it. There's no reason to suck on the road in the NHL. I know you're in a hotel room, you're in a different city, you're a little different routine. Look at the road records of half the good teams in the NHL. They win on the road. Good teams win on the road. This Sabres team, it just seems like they've quit on either Lindy or Kevyn Adams or Terry Pegula. And when you have a team that quits, a lot of times you need to make a change. And even if the person that you get rid of isn't the entire problem, sometimes you just need it just to kind of get a refresh button. You see it all the time in football. You fire a head coach, and then the team that has the fired head coach wins it with an interim head coach. I think at this point in time, this team feels like they're a bunch of losers. They think this is a loser culture. They think this is a loser organization. And honestly, I think half of them don't even like the fans in this city, to be honest with you. And the reputation of the Buffalo Sabres across the NHL is that we're a joke. The city, the players, the fans, everything. We're considered a joke in the NHL. And you can't have a general manager, even if he's saying things that are correct perceptions, you can't have a general manager acknowledging that's all true. Yeah, we don't have the palm trees. We don't have we have the taxes. No, Carson, I know you're shaking your head.
And it was such a taken out of context.
No, you're right, Carson. It was taken out of context. The problem was that Kevyn Adams was admitting everything that we know is true, but he hasn't been able to overcome. We were talking about it on the show. He tries to do the same strategy that everybody else is doing. Draft and develop. Well, how's that working in Ottawa? How's that work in all of our peer cities? Detroit's on a 9-year playoff drought. Our peers aren't having success. If you're trying to do the same things all of your competitors are doing, how are you going to get better when you're a less desirable city, when you have higher taxes, when you are colder climate, when you have a worse tradition, where nobody wants to play for you? He's trying to do the same things that everybody else is doing, but we're not in a position to do the same things. Now, maybe if we got lucky and we got the number 1 overall pick when it's Macklin Celebrini or when it's Connor Bedard or Connor McDavid, maybe history would have gone a little bit different. But we can't just continue to lose every year, get top 5, top 10 picks, guys that are just good enough to play in the NHL after a couple years, but not good enough to make an impact at the level you need. You can't just have the draft and develop. You got to do something outside the box. And this team isn't doing anything outside the box.
We do have the beer saber.
This would be my final point. If you're a MAC school and you have a budget $5 million less than your other MAC school, how are you going to get better than that team? You're either going to hope and pray that you draft and develop, that you recruit and develop better than your other MAC school, which is going to be hard because you have less money. So you better be the best at developing. And odds are you're not going to be 10 times better at developing than the other head coach. Or you need to have a different strategy. Maybe I need to have all these teams are defending the run. Maybe I need to have more of an open up passing game. Or all these teams are passing. Maybe I have to run the ball. You need to change things up. Maybe you go for it on fourth down more. The Sabres need to find an alternate route to success. And they have not been bold enough in trying to do it. And until they are bold enough to do something that is outside of the NHL norm, they're not going to have success. And it shows that they're complacent and that they're content. They need to start being more bold. And I would rather see I think 95% of this fan base would rather embrace a Sabres team that's being bold that falls short than being complacent that falls short. Because one is we're going down swinging, and the other one is we're content with just being part of the league. And if the Sabres are just going to be content being part of the league and missing the playoffs every year, then I will get to the point where just move the damn team, because I don't need a hockey team that's just going to accept being one of the worst in the team on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I think Adams is where he tried to differ a little bit with a different strategy was personal relationships, for better or for worse. Like he talked about some of the guys and the coaching staff coming to his house consistently. You look at what he did with Kyle Okposo. He dished him off to Florida where he wanted to go. He's done that with a few other veteran guys too. And I thought he maybe thought, well, they're agents and that reputation will help me get a guy in free agency or maybe a guy to or a general manager to return the favor and trade it back to me or trade a good, return back to me. I don't think it quite worked like that. Maybe how he planned or,
Worked
how
the opposite.
yeah, it didn't really come to fruition. So it's tough. The results haven't been there. What they do after Adams, I think, is kind of we see the line, the trajectory with not Karmanos, Jarmo Kekalainen, and then he's going to have some big decisions to make if it is ultimately him and they do move on from Adams. Is what are we going to do with a number of these free agents? How are we going to get better? Where are we going to be in the draft? What are we going to do with head coach? What about the bench? What about the assistant coaches? What about the Amherst, everything like that? And I can imagine he might try to bring in his own guys. But right now, with Adams still the general manager, I don't want them to think, as in the players on the team, that we're punting the season away this early. The season's far from over. The win against Edmonton, to me, was, although they played a disastrous third period, to me was impressive. To blow a 3-0 lead and then still come out and win in overtime like the way that they did, that was impressive to me. That showed that, hey, there is still some mental strength there, and they kept their composure from overtime. I mean, I've seen Alex Tuch get his fair share of slander throughout the season, but the effort that dude threw in overtime, that was all Alex Tuch.
You didn't watch the first 45 minutes of the show. The Alex Tuch slander is still continuing. It's courtesy of Mike Bundt.
I get it. There's a lot of people hating and ripping on Alex Tuch right now, but the effort from 89 in overtime was tremendous. He gets rewarded with the goal, beautiful pass by McLeod. It's just we need effort like that more consistently. I think don't get me wrong, but I don't want them to take the Adams, if they do fire him, as a way of, okay, well, guess what? The season's over. I don't think they will necessarily take it that way. If anything, that might light a spark under them. Okay, your job's not secure anymore. This is not the guy that brought you in here, either through free agency, the draft, or a trade. So to me, we'll have to see. I think if they do let him go, the 10 games after when Adams is let go, I think it's going to be a big tell on how the guys viewed him and ultimately and how the trajectory of the rest of the season will go. If there's, if they start winning, I think that's a sign that, okay, these guys are playing motivated. They're ready to go. If they start losing, I think that's a sign of, okay, well, the firing is more of a kick in the can. We're done. And right now, the finals 52 games is going to be massive for the future of this team because Alex Tuch's a guy, we talked about him a ton, but Tage and Darlene have been here for a minute. I think Darlene, you got loyalty from, especially with how they handled his fiance. But you look at Thompson, he's just getting a year older, right? So he might be a guy that they could possibly, want out or things like that. He's been here since, 2017, 2018, maybe 2019. So that's been a long time to not be successful or find the playoffs. So whatever happens in these next few days, I'm sure we'll talk about it. Time will only tell, but, I'm always going to be with my guy, Kevyn Adams. So regardless, though, I take everything take everything that I said today as more of a personal relationship thing. But I do understand the business. It's a results business. I just think the timing of it's a little interesting. And I probably would do things slightly differently.
Yeah, and it's weird too with Kevyn Adams because you can easily knock him on a ton of stuff throughout the course of his time as a GM. I mean, he was put in a spot to be a GM when he wasn't ready, and he has grown in spots throughout the course of the tenure of his job. He's made some really good moves, especially recently with trades. And you even look how he talks with media. Like, I think he's pretty open with media when they talk. Like, they'll request availability. He'll talk with them. Like, for a guy who's had a Fire Adams chance throughout basically the entire tenure of his job, like, I will give him credit of being like open with, how things are for the most part. And even like he's been too honest a lot of times too, whether it be like the palm tree stuff or I feel sorry for our fans. There's a lot of weird stuff throughout there, but you look at the team now and even the win in Edmonton, normally that would fill me with like, oh, the team can build off this. This is something good that, they blew a 3-0 lead, but they, like Carr said, won that in overtime. They played strong. They didn't fold. But, it's scary because it's happened a couple times through the season. It's been the same cyclical patterns of, we play bad. We have the right quotes in the locker room. We win a couple games and then we lose 3 more. We take 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And for me, you want this core to have that fire that they hate losing more than they want to win. And it's unfortunately just not there at all for me. And I want to be wrong. There's nothing more that I want to see than the Sabres team be good and to go on stretches. And we know the talent's there. We've seen it in years prior. We've seen it this year. But for me, it just needs that internal want, that internal fire. I don't know what it's going to take to get it there. I'm not the one making $100,000 a year to make those decisions. But, Bunty, before we wrap up, any final thoughts? You feeling good? You guys feeling good as we wrap this up?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is this. It's tough now because I think the generation of players now are weaker mentally than maybe any generation of athletes we've ever had in professional sports. And I know that sounds like, oh, that's a millennial talking down to Gen Z or whatever you guys are considered now. But there used to be toughness that was associated with working hard and being able to get back on track. And what I struggle with this generation of hockey players and athletes in general is that they are now given so many things at a young age that a lot of these athletes do not respond to adversity properly. Like you look at how did the Sabres handle things when they struggled back in the day? Like Lindy would be tough on them. He would call them out. He would be aggressive. You call out Paterk last year, he wants out. You call out anybody, they don't want to. They don't put their effort in anymore. And a lot of that is because they're getting paid millions of dollars. And if you get them mad, they're still going to collect their millions of dollars. They're still going to have their fun life off the ice, and they have nothing to lose. So when fans are critical of them, they take offense to it. These Sabres players don't understand why the Sabres fans boo them or why they're hard on them. They're like, well, we weren't here for all the time. You can't understand. Like it's years of built-up frustration. I used to defend the Sabres players. Like I get it. You're not part of it. Like, give me a break. But what's frustrating is like what I think the Sabres need is they need a general manager that the players respect and believe is doing everything in his power to make them a better team that can win on the ice. And I also think at the same time, they need a general manager that instills confidence in them. Not someone that just says nice things to them in the media or says, I believe in you. They need a general manager that has the right balance of saying, you are a good player, but we need you to play like the player we're paying you to be. We didn't sign you to this extension to coast. We need you to do this stuff. And I need the player to respond to that appropriately and not just quit on the team. I think Kevyn Adams was a little bit too much of a, I believe in you guys. You can do it. I believe that you guys are going to take the next step. But at the same time, when things would go wrong, he'd be like, well, the palm trees and New York taxes, all that stuff. It's too much of a, I believe in you, or the world's against us. Woe is me. They need somebody that has the respect to be able to speak their voice, their opinions, hold the players accountable, while also being able to put them in a better position to get better results. And Lindy was the guy they thought could do that. The problem, I think, with Lindy is that because it's his second time with the franchise and people looked at it as a PR move, is that I don't think it's resonated the way they thought it would. His voice hasn't made the impact. And I think Lindy has also adapted himself to where maybe he's not as hard on the players as he used to be because he recognizes that they have different mentalities. What I almost feel like the Sabres need to do, and I'll try to keep this quick because I don't want to keep you too long. There's two things. I really think a turn and burn coach could be helpful in this situation. And I'm talking about a coach that will just light the living shit out of them. Like, basically demand excellence. And if you don't have the excellence, you're gone. You're gone. You're gone. And I don't want to say like rebuild, but I'm talking about players that don't buy in, ship them the fuck out. And give me a blank canvas of the people that actually give a shit. And what I like about turn and burn is you either buy in and you show that you're worth being somebody, or you get them out and you open up the space to do what you need. There's a lot of examples, like a John Tortorella. Back in the day, you'd say Mike Keenan. And like some of those coaches, like they're going to be disasters in the long run. You know, like if you want them to be like coaches for 5-6 years, it's going to be a disaster. But like, I think they need a turn and burn. And then unless they're able to get like a Pete Dubois or like somebody that's like really respected and talented at coach, like a Joel Quenneville. Like, I hate saying this, he might have been an intriguing guy to come to Buffalo, where he's had all the success, basically built the Florida team before Paul Maurice gets the Stanley Cups that Joel Quenneville was part of building, and he won the Cups in Chicago. Like, would he have been a good reputation? No. But does he know how to coach hockey? Yes. That might have been a guy that they should have taken a chance on. Now he's back in the NHL, and somebody else is going to reap the benefits. And then the last thing I will say is this. People might persecute me for saying this. If Tage Thompson, if Owen Power, and some of these other guys, I'm not saying trade power, but if Tage Thompson, some of these other guys don't turn up their level of play to a more consistent team-based approach in the next year, fucking trade them. Like honestly, I get it. Tage is a great value for his goal scoring. I don't need guys that don't play a lick of defense. I don't need guys that are going to be turning over the puck. I'd rather score two. Like, this sounds horrible because I know we lived this with Eichel and Reinhart with like not scoring goals. I would rather have a team battle their ass off and work hard on a nightly basis, and maybe the puck luck goes their way, maybe it doesn't, than seeing a bunch of lazy people on a nightly basis and skill players giving away goals. And for the love of me, give me a goddamn goalie that actually can start in the NHL. So basically what I'm saying, give me a turn and burn coach, get me a general manager not afraid of making a bold move. And if that all fails, not start it over, but start moving some of these guys out. I'm getting to an end point with some of these key players on this team.
Wow, Bundt is just repping the team.
Like, I'm just being real, Carson. Like
I get it.
Tage has been part of this team for how many years?
Wild.
How many years have they been? Like, here's the thing. We said it earlier in the show. Tage can score goals, but how is he helping you when he's a -12? Like, he's not helping you. He's a net negative. He doesn't play
defense. Power play numbers aren't what they used to be either.
Like this
Tage
is
Thompson, net negative.
Do you watch him?
I mean, I'm not ready to give up on
like
that.
I'm not giving up on him now. But what I'm saying is, think about it. He's 28. How many prime years does he have left? It could be 5. It could be 6. It could be 1. It could be 2. I need Tage to be the reason why they're winning, not a contributor to why they're losing. No, I don't want Ted Nolan for a third, please.
Third time's a charm.
That's a no for me. But that might be like that might be all they can get at this point. But and I know I sound like a clown when I'm calling out maybe the most skilled player on the team. But you watch the team, like you're not a -12 by accident. Like the reason the Sabres stink isn't because they got a bad fourth line or because their third line ain't good. It's because the guys that are supposed to be carrying this team don't do their jobs. So at some point, I got to ask myself this. If Tate scores 40 goals, but we're getting 79 to 83 points a year, what is the point of him scoring 40 goals? We talked about it earlier in the show. Why was Jonathan Taves the guy people talked about in Chicago when they had Patrick Kane? Why was Chris Drury the guy in Buffalo they talked about when we had Danny Briere? You can get other skilled guys that will score goals. Maybe not 44 in a season, but you need an all-around team. And that's why we love Josh Doan, even though his plus-minus isn't amazing right now, because he can bring it in both sides. That's why we like guys like Ryan McLeod, who's a middle six player. Like the Sabres need their top guys to lead by example. And that is where they have failed throughout the years, is they get players that don't want to embrace the fact that they need to carry the team. Josh Allen carries the Buffalo Bills. Tage Thompson does not carry the Buffalo Sabres. And I understand hockey is different than football. A quarterback has a bigger impact on the game. But I'm just tight. Like, there's been countless hockey players throughout the years where you're like, that guy can score a lot of goals, but you're like, but their team stink. Like Rick Nash. Rick Nash could score a lot of goals, but did his teams ever win? Ilya Kovalchuk, he could score a lot of goals, but did his teams win a ton? Like, look at Pat Kane now. Pat Kane still puts up 60 points, but Pat Kane is a shitty hockey player. Like, he doesn't play an ounce of defense. Like, the Sabres need guys that are committed to doing the things that lead to winning hockey. And winning hockey isn't just about putting 40 goals in the net. It's playing hard when you turn over the puck at the blue line. It's getting back to the net to block a puck, help your goalie out. It's being in the right lane. It's your goaltenders not being blind. It's defensemen realizing there's a guy in front of you that's about to tap in a rebound and putting your hands on them. Like, this team is so lazy. And some people say that's not lazy. It's just not talent. They're just not talented enough. They're lazy. I've seen Sabres teams with half of this talent be playoff teams in the past. This team is one of the worst collective groups of people I have seen. And it bothers me because last year, I actually think last year might have been worse with Cousins. And for as talented as Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart are, I think that might have been the worst culture in the history of the Sabres when those guys were on the team. Like, there's some people, like I said, that are leaders and other guys that are passengers. The Sabres have too many passengers on their team. And Jason Zucker called it out the other night. Not enough guys willing to do what it takes. I don't get it. I don't get how you're an NHL player and you just don't give a shit.
Yeah. Just one, I guess, final thoughts. I'll make it quick. If there is a regime change and Jarmo takes over, we talked about John Tortorella. I'm just saying the connection with Columbus is there. It's a guy who's
burn it down. Let's go.
I'm a huge Torts guy. I love Torts.
Former Sabres assistant too.
Who?
You a former Sabres assistant back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Torts.
Long time ago.
I think he was with Rochester too for a big point in time.
Yes.
But regardless, I think that could be
Rochester assistant. I don't know if Sabres assistant.
That's a fun thing to keep an eye on. But as far as the team goes, they just got to continue to they got to work. They got to work. Right now, what happens with Kevyn Adams to an extent right now is out of their control. Some of these guys weren't here 3 years ago. Some of them were. But right now, the decision's already been made. I think the outcome's already been decided on if he does get fired or if he's going to stay. It's a culmination of 52 games. There's going to be a decision either in the coming weeks or at the end of the season. And that's that. The guys can only focus on what they can control. And all 23 of them better be ready for whatever happens next, whether that's a loss to tonight and they make it, a move or and 5 or so days, or everything stays the same. That should not change the intensity level. These guys couldn't change the motivation. Yeah, sure. But the intensity's got to stay the same. The effort's got to be, high quality, and the team's got to find a way to get wins, because at the end of the day, they've been extremely inconsistent. The only thing they've been consistent at is, the streaks. They lose 3, win 2, and then win 2 of their next 3, and then they're at 500, and then, you lose again 2 or 3 games in a row.
Consistently inconsistent.
Yep, they've been consistently inconsistent, and that has to change. The best teams that ultimately make those playoffs in April are the teams that are consistent, and they play extremely, extremely hard. They're difficult night in, night out. It's not that they, play 5 nights extremely difficult and then all of a sudden one night derails them. That just can't happen. So I think the outcome's already been decided with what's going to happen in the front office, whether or not he's going to stay or not. And after that, it's kind of that. But right now, I think if you're in the locker room and if you're a player, you just got to be focused on Vancouver, and you got to be focused on taking down one of the worst teams in the league tonight. And 2 points are valuable no matter who it's against.
100%. And yeah, this is a game tonight too where you have 2 teams kind of in similar boats. So they should be better than they are. There talks of big stars being moved, what the future looks like, retool, rebuild. Are they going to try to build what they have right now? It's going to be an interesting game tonight at 10 p.m. puck drop, which should be illegal on a weekday. But alas, here we are. And yeah, you guys set it up pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see what the Sabres do right now, because this sets up not only the rest of this season, but their off season and their future. Because like we said all night, you got an Alex Tuch extension on the horizon. What do they do with that? Can they get it done? Do they end up moving him because they can't let him walk for nothing come the off season? You have other big re-signings need done, whether it be Josh Stone, Michael Kesselring, and just general improvements to the team. There's a trade deadline looming less than 100 days away now, and each day is important here. So it's kind of an awkward stretch of the season. So we'll see what the Sabres do. And I think a movement of Kevyn Adams would just give fans, sign of a pulse from, ownership that they want to be better. Whether that's, bringing Jarmo or what happens. And I'm interested to see if Kevyn Adams stays with the organization. I think that is genuinely a possibility, what that be. So that time will come. Big game tonight, gentlemen. I'll go through the last couple of comments here, but I want to thank John, McKay, Paul Hamilton, Mike, a whole lot of you stopping in tonight. If Norris plays 10 games without injury, should trade him. Yeah, I mean, that's the issue now is even him missing the last game tonight with like illness/soreness, that just feels very odd. I know they said an injury's been running through the team, but yeah, it sucks when it's, Norris plays a handful of games and is out again. So another kind of stain on the Adams tenure. And yeah, Norris's game has been good when he's here, but the issue always has been he hasn't been. And I want to thank everyone here who has been here tonight. The over 4,100 people who stopped in tonight to hear us talk about the bottom of the Eastern Conference, Buffalo Sabres, as they look to play a 10 o'clock game tonight. So again, thank you for being here. If you're still watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel out on Twitter or Facebook. Shoot us a follow. That has been Mike_Bundt. That has been at Carson Hayek. I've been at Gatesy35. Thanks again, folks, and we will see you all next week.